Welcome to Sweethearts or Rivals. I'm Charla.
I'm Justin.
What's on our table today?
Seeland.
Seeland is an older game. It's from 2010.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason I thought we should review it is I keep seeing it up for sale a lot.
Yep.
And people asking questions about, is this a good game? So
there we go.
Here we are.
Right on.
So this game, you can play it with 2 to 4 players. And the ages they recommend are 9 to 99.
That's right.
And the copy we have is published by Ravensburger.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't say a time on the box, but I would guess right around an hour.
Yep. Hour and a half.
Maybe.
There we go. Right on. So, what do you think of the components of Seeland?
I think the components are nice. I like that the colors are nice and bright. The artwork is nice and cheery as well.
Yep.
I really like that.
Yep.
The cardboard's just a medium weight cardboard though.
Mm-hmm.
You're not going to get a thick weight cardboard with this one.
True.
But the pieces are wooden, and the windmills are really nice because they're thick and they're kind of chunky. They're big.
Yep.
And they're cute little windmills. Although if you get it in your head that they look like skull and crossbones, they kind of do look like that as well. And I like that there's different colors. Like there's natural and there's orange. I think there's gray and what's the other color?
Brown.
Brown. So it's the different colors rather than the standard player colors.
Yep.
Now I don't know if that would be hard for people who can't distinguish colors very easily. I mean, brown and natural are going to look really close together. Yeah. Even the gray and the natural are quite close together.
The gray and the natural especially are very close.
Yeah. So it's hard to differentiate between the player colors, I think.
That's too bad.
Yeah. But all in all, I think the components for Seeland are really good.
Yep. It's a puzzle board, and we've seen several puzzle boards before that do not work well, but this one goes together quite nicely.
It does. And the board itself is actually quite a thick cardboard.
Yeah.
So that helps with the puzzle board, because if you have too flimsy of a puzzle board, that's when it kind of goes like
warped. Yeah.
a Seeland. But this one's a flat one.
Yeah.
So our next section is strategery, which is a word we use for strategy, tactics, and luck.
There we go. There's actually 2 sides of the puzzle board. One side, you put the island pieces out face down, and it's random. So that's actually going to increase the randomness of the game. The other side is a more tactical game because the islands are already placed out on the board face up. So you don't use the island tiles at all. You don't access those island tiles until you build around them, but you know exactly where they are, so that would swing it from random to more long-term and short-term planning.
Right.
Yeah.
So it depends on what kind of game you want, I guess.
Exactly.
In the playthrough, you see I ended up flipping a lot of cabbages, which was scary.
Yeah.
But
it worked out for you, though.
Well, you don't want to give spoilers away.
Spoilers. So there is that choice, which is nice. Regardless of which one you choose, the game is a lot of tactics with some kind of sneaky, underhanded strategy and a little bit of randomness.
Right.
And the little bit of randomness is what tiles are going to be taken out of the bag to place here. If you're playing the regular sideboard, what's going to flip up from the islands, that kind of thing. But that's about it for randomness. The strategy is you can set yourself up with a nice windmill with a nice surrounding of pieces and then kind of ignore it a little bit until people start forgetting it's there. And then at the very end of the game, suddenly fulfill it for some really big points. But most of the game is going to be tactics, and that's going to be, first of all, this rondel here of tactically moving around and getting the pieces you want while messing everyone else's plan up. And then, of course, the tactics of placing your pieces out here. Even though you can only build landscape tiles next to your own windmills, you can build windmills next to any developed piece of land. And you don't have to put one of your windmills on it.
Right.
So you can start messing with other people's plans by putting those windmills out and not populating them.
Especially the zeros.
Yeah.
If you see someone that has a lot of good fields on their windmill and you're like, I can't have that going on and I can't put these 0 tulips there. Put that 0 windmill though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's a little bit of kind of meanness take that to the game, but not a lot.
But you don't have to play that way if you don't want to.
No, you don't have to.
I mean, it just depends on, you can kind of taper your game to how you like to play it.
Exactly.
So just to clarify one little thing. You had said we pull these out of a bag.
It's true.
But we like to do that just to increase the randomness.
Yep.
But normally it's supposed to be played with they're in a stack, right?
Yes.
So they're played with a stack like this, so you actually will see what the next one is coming out.
True.
So that would help with your long-term strategy.
You can see a little bit ahead in the future.
A glimpse into the future.
Yeah.
Like you kind of know what the future market's going to be.
There you go.
So that can play in if you want a more strategical game.
Yep.
You probably don't want to put them in a bag like we do.
Yeah.
Because we just like to generate them randomly.
Yeah.
That's the only reason. But
Plus there's a lot, and it's kind of a pain to get it stacked on the one spot on the board where you put the entire stack.
And the thing of it is, they are a little thin, so they kind of don't stack. It would be really easy to just...
Yeah.
And the whole thing is knocked over.
Yeah.
So anyway.
But it does have an effect on the gameplay.
It would, yeah.
Yep. In the playthrough, we also played the full game. There's actually a base game that does not have the governors, and it does not have the mark your record-breaking harvest, which means at the very end of the game, there's no end game scoring whatsoever. I prefer the full game where we do have some end game scoring because that can have a big deal.
Yeah, I'd rather play the full game too.
Yeah.
Because it gives you a little bit more to work towards. Because playing it just that way is a little too basic, I think.
Yeah, yeah. It's a good way to learn the basic rules of the game. But then afterwards, you add these two little end game scoring additions on top that work quite well. So what about the complexity of Seeland?
Well, like you said, there's the base game you can play without these.
Yep.
And without those.
Yes.
So you can tailor it for complexity that way. And I don't find it's an overly complex game at all. I would say it's not complex.
Yeah.
Because you're just putting out these next to your windmills. And then once you put a windmill out next to these, you can flip them over.
Yeah.
So it's just figuring out which tiles to get on this rondelle. And getting, make sure you get some bonuses so you can get high points.
Yeah.
It's a really relaxing game.
Yeah.
It's not complex or stressful at all.
And imagine that if you're playing the tactical side of the board, there'd be a little bit more, again, less randomness and swinging more to the tactics and strategy. So then there might be a little bit more thought into your moves, which would take more time. Might be a little AP prone.
It could be.
Could be.
But not once you get used to it.
Possibly.
But the thing about the other side of the board is that it's always the same number. Yeah. Do you think it would be easy to teach it to someone?
Fairly easy, yeah. I think one of the rules that would kind of get in the way is the fact that your landscape tiles can only go next to your windmills, but new windmills can go next to any developed land. It doesn't seem like that's very complicated, but they're two different mindsets for putting out tiles. So you got to kind of watch that.
And I half wonder about this rondelle because it's a very interesting rondelle.
Yes.
I really enjoy how the money is.
Yeah.
Because if you can see the board up here, my piece is here and Justin's piece is here. Well, I have no money to spend because I'm already at the end. I'm not going to get any money until Justin moves his player piece, and then we move these pieces of money.
Yeah.
And how you move your money is you need to move this guy around, and how far he moves is how much money you have to spend. So I went 0, 1, 2, 3. And look, I'm out of money again.
Yeah.
So I find this really interesting.
Yes.
That might be a little complicated to teach a newbie, though, maybe.
Yeah. And I think it wouldn't be difficult to teach, but to understand some of the strategies behind it takes a little bit of time. So, for example, with it set up the way it is now, as long as I don't spend money, Charla can't spend money.
Right, I can only go 0.
Right.
Yeah.
So there's ways you can manipulate things, even though they're not immediately apparent. There are ways you can manipulate things.
And now, I don't find this part of the game complex at all. Maybe it would be a medium complexity. I don't know. I just find it very interesting, not complex.
Yep.
And it's also interesting because sometimes when you flip these toggles, you're going to get a piece of money. So you'll have this money and you can spend 1 money a turn to get an extra turn.
Yeah.
So knowing how the wheel is set up and where your opponent is on the money track and what they might be going for and how to manipulate when you take your extra turn, I also find that very interesting.
Yes.
But not complex.
Because the way that the back and forth, especially in a 2-player game, of this whole section works, knowing strategically when to pay that stuver to get an extra turn can throw everything off for the other player.
And we wanted to try to have played this with 4 before we reviewed it, but we didn't have a chance to.
Yeah.
But I figure in a 2-player game, I really like how the back and forth is.
Yeah. Imagine with more players, the amount of player chaoticness jumps up a lot, and it just becomes like really, really focus on just pure tactics.
You probably can't even look at the wheel. Like, you take your turn and then 2 more players go, I don't even want to know what they're doing.
Yeah.
Until the 3rd player. Because, I mean, you can just watch these really good things just keep getting snatched up. That might be a little frustrating in a 4-player game.
Yep.
I don't know, though.
Maybe.
Maybe.
It works well 2 players, though.
Yes. It does.
Right.
So what about the playability?
The playability. Well, there's lots of different ways you can play Seeland. You've got the tactical side of the board, the random side of the board, the base game, the advanced game. If you're playing the random side of the board, the island tiles are all going to be different every time. So it's going to make the game, even though you're doing the same thing, there's lots of different ways you can play it, and it's never going to be the exact same. So that's very interesting. You always start off in the same spot, but there's always kind of this wide open field of which way you're going to go, which is interesting, and again is going to play out differently every single time you play. So that's kind of cool. As for the mechanics versus the theme, it does feel like you are populating this kind of swampy land with all of your pumping windmills and then able to plant fields. The choices of the fields are kind of odd.
Well, it's probably whatever grows in Seeland.
Maybe.
Wherever Seeland is.
Just, I'm going to do all this work for cabbages. That makes sense because you can eat cabbages. But then tulips.
Now, tulips are a great industry for...
the Netherlands?
Yes.
Okay, there we go.
I'm pretty sure in my memory banks, this is just a vague recollection, that they make a lot of the tulips for the whole world.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then rapeseed.
I don't know anything about that. We just call them daffodils because they're yellow.
There you go. It's interesting. But it also makes for a nice visual because the rapeseed is very yellow, the tulips are very red, and the cabbages are very green.
Yes. It's nice how the higher numbers have better crops.
Yeah.
Like, compare the 3 to the 7.
Yep.
Like, it's... Yeah, and it's really well thought out with the windmills, too, because the 0 windmills are, like, really, like, small and really underdeveloped. But, like, once you get this 5, like, look, it's painted, it's got a walkway, it's, like, multi-level.
Yeah, we'll see if I can hold it up.
It's like it grows up from the ground up.
There we go, that's a 5. It's painted, it's nice and big, multi-level.
The 0s just look like it was put together with chewing gum and, like, some 2x4s.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, thematically, like, it's cool.
So, does Seeland have the awesomeness or the cuteness?
I think it has the cuteness. Because these windmills and the flowers, and I'm gardening with windmills.
There you go.
Yeah.
Very cute.
I love the theme. It's just so cute.
Nice. Right. Are we going to trade it or are we going to keep it?
I'd like to keep it.
Yeah.
But I don't know how much you're in love with it.
I enjoy it.
I like it because it's a nice mid-weight, and like I said, it's a relaxing game, and you don't really get too caught up in, like, the strategy. It just kind of, it's a nice relaxing game, and you're just going along, planting your tulips and your daffodils.
Yeah.
You can take time to smell the roses with this one.
There you go. And did we finish this as sweethearts or rivals? We finished it as
I think
rivals.
Really?
Rivals!
I think sweethearts. I'm running along and planting flowers and, you know, just running my shop here.
Yeah. See, in the last game, I got way ahead and then relaxed, and that was a mistake.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because you suddenly had, like, these massive point machines that you just relaxingly built up until the end of the game, just like, oh, I'm just going to score 47 points.
I never scored 47 in one turn. That would have been awesome.
No, you didn't.
Because I would have beat you by way more. I would have had 20 and, like, 15 instead of 10, 15, 10 and 5. Yeah.
Yeah. So, there are enough ways that you can interfere or sneak in on other people's plans that this would be a rivalry game.
Yeah, and we could turn it over to the printed on side.
Yeah.
And really have some cutthroat flower planting.
Yeah. wars over the best locations. Yeah, definitely. Nice.
Awesome.
That's Seeland.
It is. Thanks for watching.
Thanks a lot.
We'll see you in the next video.
Laters.